I used to think there were few days in life as clear-cut as a graduation, joy in the air, family gathered, all those years of hard work finally paying off. When my younger brother's college graduation came around, I felt, well, proud, even if I'd always been the outsider in my family. I drove down alone, my old Honda freshly washed, hoping maybe this time I'd feel like I belonged. Extended family had flown in from 3 different states. My aunt swapped stories in the kitchen. Cousins crowded around my mom's lasagna, passing baby pictures, laughing at childhood memories. You'd never know by looking that anything was off. I stood by the window, mug of coffee in hand, watching my brother and father shake hands with everyone. There was a weird energy, something tense, barely hidden beneath the surface smiles. My brother, Ryan, was the golden boy, on a roll, football, always going places. Dad hovered around him, basking in the reflected glow. I was the steady one, steady job, steady bills, steady absence at family events. I tried not to take it personally. After all, I'd worked for everything I had, including the car I drove up in. No help, no handouts. That Honda meant freedom. It meant every late-night shift, every skipped vacation, every time I'd said no to going out so I could make another payment. It was mine. As everyone settled in the living room, Mom called for a toast. To Ryan, she said, her eyes shining. "We're so proud of you." Glasses clinked. My uncle gave Ryan a hearty slap on the back. I joined in, trying not to feel invisible. Just as the laughter died down, Dad raised his voice. "Actually, I have a little announcement." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The room quieted, all eyes turning to him. "I was thinking," he began, "that since your brother's moving to the city for his new job, he's going to need reliable transportation." I felt a flicker of unease, but brushed it off. Probably just suggesting they chip in for a used car. Dad looked right at me. "Why don't you give Ryan your car? It's in great shape, and you don't really need it in your line of work, do you?" It was said so casually, as if it was a reasonable favor, like passing the salt at dinner. For a moment, no one said anything. Then my brother's face split into a grin. He must have known this was coming. My mind scrambled for words, but my mouth went dry. It wasn't a joke. My father was seriously asking, no, expecting me to hand over the one thing I'd earned entirely on my own. I scanned the room, half hoping for someone to speak up, to laugh it off, but everyone was watching me. I felt exposed, like prey under a spotlight. I forced a tight smile. "That's a big ask, Dad." He shrugged. "Family helps family. Ryan needs a good start, and you're in the best position to help. I'm sure everyone here agrees." It felt like the walls were closing in. I set my coffee down, my hands shaking. Nobody said a word. The air buzzed with anticipation, waiting to see what I'd do. My heart hammered in my chest, but on the outside I kept my face calm, careful not to betray just how stunned I was. Everyone stared at me, waiting for the show to go on. My brother looked down at his phone, feigning disinterest, but the little smirk on his face told me all I needed to know. He wanted this. He expected it, the same way he expected everything to fall into his lap. I glanced at my mother, hoping for a lifeline, but she avoided my eyes, busying herself with rearranging the napkins. I caught a few of my cousins exchanging glances, uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. That silence stung more than anything. My father just waited, arms crossed, radiating authority. He was used to getting his way, and the implication was clear. If I said no, I'd be the selfish one, the ungrateful son, the outsider. Again, I swallowed, forcing my voice steady. "I worked hard for that car. It's not something I can just hand over." Dad's jaw tightened. "You have a good job. You can always get another. This is about family, not things." His voice had an edge to it, like I'd failed a test I didn't know I was taking. The room felt smaller, like the walls were creeping in on me. My uncle, my dad's brother, shifted in his seat, but said nothing. The rest of the family kept their heads down, suddenly fascinated by their drinks. My brother cleared his throat and, without looking up, said, "Come on, man. It's not that big a deal." That did it. The hurt flared into anger, but I swallowed it down. Not here. Not now. I needed to stay calm. I needed to remember what I had, something they didn't know about. The recording I'd made weeks ago, when I'd overheard Dad and Ryan talking late at night. They hadn't known I was home. They hadn't known I'd heard them planning, laughing about how I'd always just roll over for them. I almost reached for my phone right then and there, but I stopped myself. Not yet. Timing was everything. Instead, I forced a chuckle and shook my head. "I'll think about it." Dad's face soured. "Think about it? You should be proud to help your brother." Mom finally looked up, her voice small. Let's not do this now. Please. But Dad ignored her. Either you step up, or you can forget about being part of this family. That's how we do things. The ultimatum hung heavy in the air, and I felt something inside me snap. They weren't asking, they were demanding. And I realized I was done playing along. I stood up. If that's really how you feel, then maybe I do need to think about what family means. The table went silent, tension pulsing in the space between us. My father glared, my brother looked away, and for the first time, I felt strangely in control. Nobody spoke, but the air vibrated with what wasn't being said. I could feel every pair of eyes on me, searching for a cyanide cave. Dad's glare burned, daring me to argue, and I could see Ryan shifting in his seat, suddenly less smug now that the conversation wasn't going according to plan. For a long moment, I stood there, hands balled into fists, fighting to keep my voice steady. Dad broke the silence first, his voice cold and loud enough for the whole room to hear. I'm not asking again. Give your brother the car, or you're out. You can forget about this family, don't come home, don't call, don't expect anything from any of us. It wasn't just an ultimatum. It was a threat, sharpened by years of quiet favoritism, by every Christmas where Ryan's gifts outshined mine, by every time Dad introduced me as his other son. I felt a hot wave of humiliation rise, but beneath it, something else, relief. He'd finally said it. I wasn't imagining things. He was choosing my brother again, and I was disposable. I looked around at my family. My mother's lips trembled as she stared at her lap, her wedding ring twisting on her finger. My cousins couldn't meet my gaze. Even my uncle, who'd always been quick with a joke or a distraction, just stared into his coffee. My brother finally looked up at me, and for a split second I saw fear in his eyes. He hadn't expected this to go public. He counted on me rolling over again. But I was done. I took a slow breath. So that's it then? If I don't give you my car, I'm out? My voice cracked a little, but I didn't care. Dad didn't hesitate. That's right. Make your choice. My heart thudded in my chest, but my mind was clear. For the first time, I saw the strings they'd been pulling my whole life, yanking me around, making me feel small so Ryan could stand tall. I felt the weight of that secret recording in my pocket, a recording that could rip the mask off right here, right now. I took out my phone and held it, thumb hovering over the screen, but I paused. I wanted everyone's attention. I wanted every person in that room to hear what my father and brother really thought of me. Not just a burden, not just the other son. I wanted the truth in the open. Before I could hit play, my uncle's chair scraped the floor. He stood up, clearing his throat. Enough, he said quietly, but everyone heard it. He looked right at my father. You're crossing a line. That car is his. You can't bully him into giving it away. If this is what family means to you, then maybe it's time we talk about what's really going on. The room froze. For the first time, someone was in my corner. I met my uncle's eyes and nodded. He gave me a look, steady, sure, like I'd finally done something right. I slid my phone back into my pocket for now, the moment stretching, electric, waiting for the dam to break. The silence that followed my uncle's words was like the calm before a storm. Everyone seemed to hold their breath, waiting to see what Dad would say or do. I felt a strange surge of hope. For once, I wasn't alone in this. My uncle's quiet defiance was a crack in the armor that had kept me trapped for years. Dad's face twisted with anger, but also something else, surprise. He hadn't expected anyone to challenge him, especially not in front of the whole family. For a moment, he looked like a man trying to decide if he wanted to pick a fight or swallow his pride. My uncle didn't back down. Look, this isn't about the car. It's about respect. You're treating your son like a cash machine and your other like an outsider. That's not family. Mom finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. We've kept too many things quiet for too long. The room shifted. Eyes flickered from one person to another. I could feel the weight of years of unspoken resentment and hurt hovering like a storm cloud ready to break. I took a deep breath and finally pulled out my phone. I think it's time everyone heard something. The room tensed, anticipation crackling. This recording was made a few weeks ago. I didn't want to believe it myself, but I think it explains a lot. I hit play. Voices filled the room. My father's voice, calm but calculating. He's just a burden with a nice car. We'll get him to give it up. It's about time he did something for the family. Then Ryan's voice, laughing. Yeah, let him think it's his choice, but we're calling the shots. The words cut through the room like a knife. I looked around. Faces went pale. My father's jaw dropped, eyes wide as if caught in a trap. Ryan's phone slipped from his hands, clattering to the floor. There was a sharp intake of breath from my mother. Cousins whispered, some shaking their heads in disbelief. My uncle's expression hardened, a mix of anger and pity. I said nothing more. The recording had said it all. The room fell into a heavy, suffocating silence after the recording stopped. I could hear my own breathing, loud and sharp in my ears, like it was the only sound left. Faces that had been filled with confidence or indifference just moments before were now drained, pale, like they'd seen a ghost. Dad was the first to break, his voice shaky but defensive. That recording, that was taken out of context. You don't understand the whole conversation. Ryan didn't look me in the eye. He stared at the floor as if trying to disappear. The smugness was gone. The privileged arrogance stripped away in a single moment. Mom finally found her voice, trembling as she said, "How long has this been going on? How long have you both been planning this? Manipulation." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the family. A few whispered accusations flew between cousins. The fragile facade that had held the family together was crumbling fast. I felt a strange mix of triumph and sorrow. I'd wanted the truth out there, but seeing the fallout, it hurt deeply. The father who was supposed to protect me had betrayed me. The brother who was supposed to love me had plotted against me. My uncle cleared his throat, breaking the tension. "This is a wake-up call. We can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. I'm proud of you for standing up." For the first time, I felt seen, truly seen, in this family. But I also knew things could never go back to how they were. I stood up slowly. I'm done trying to be the good son in a family that uses me as a pawn. I'm going to live my life on my own terms. The words felt heavy but freeing. I could feel eyes on me, some in shock, some in quiet approval. Without waiting for a response, I walked out the door. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, a bittersweet end to a day that had started with hope and ended with shattered illusions. Outside, the cool evening air hit me like a slap. I took a deep breath, trying to steady the whirlwind inside my chest. The weight of years of silence, of carrying their expectations, of swallowing my own pain, was suddenly lifting. But the relief was tangled with a bitter ache I hadn't expected. I pulled out my phone and saw a message from my uncle. It read, "Proud of you. Call me anytime." His support was a lifeline I didn't realize I needed. It was the first sign that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as alone as I thought. Over the next few days, I heard from a few relatives quietly reaching out, apologizing for what had happened, or just offering a listening ear. Some stayed silent, others chose sides. But for the first time, I felt the stirrings of true family, not the kind defined by blood or obligation, but by honesty and respect. Mom called late one night. Her voice cracked as she said, "I'm sorry you had to hear those things the way you did. Your father and we've lost our way." I didn't respond right away. I wanted to scream at her for years of turning a blind eye, but instead, I let silence speak. It wasn't forgiveness, at least, not yet, but it was a beginning. I started making plans to move out on my own, away from the house that held so many memories now twisted with betrayal. I felt a strange mix of empowerment and sadness. I was stepping into the unknown, but it was my choice. For the first time, I felt the possibility of freedom, not just from my family's manipulation, but from the need to prove my worth to people who'd already decided I was less. As I packed, I glanced once more at the Honda parked in the driveway. That car had been a symbol of my struggle, my independence. And now, it was my statement. I wasn't giving it up, not for anyone. Weeks have passed since that day, and I'm still adjusting to this new reality, one where I'm not defined by my family's expectations or their manipulations. Living on my own, I finally feel like I'm breathing for myself. The silence that once felt oppressive now feels like peace. I met up with my uncle recently. We talked for hours about everything I'd been through and everything I hope to build. He's become the family I didn't know I had, a reminder that loyalty doesn't have to come with strings attached. There are moments when I catch myself wondering if I'll ever fully heal. The wounds cut deep, by betrayal, by years of favoritism, by a father's cruel ultimatum. But I'm learning that healing isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing who gets to be part of my story moving forward. Some family members have drifted away, others keep their distance, but a few have quietly offered support. It's complicated, messy, just like family is supposed to be. But now, I'm standing on my own ground, no longer bending to fit a mold that wasn't meant for me. And the car? It's still mine. A symbol of everything I fought for, my independence, my self-worth, my refusal to be erased. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd given in. Maybe I'd have kept the peace, but lost myself. Instead, I chose to risk everything for the truth. It was the hardest choice I ever made, but it was mine.